Weddings-ish, 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 with Jove.
This episode is brought to you by Generation Tux, the perfect suit or tuxedo delivered straight to your door. GenerationTux.com. Well, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in to Weddings-ish with Jove, a podcast about all things love, joy, and weddings-ish with a special guest each episode. This episode, I'm delighted to have the very talented fashion designer, Jackson Wiederhoeft. Did I say it right?
Gorgeous. Perfect. Yeah.
I always want to say Wiederhoft, but it's Wiederhoeft.
Yeah. Depends who you ask.
You hit the V and the T?
Yeah. Might as well just go for it.
Go for it. Will you say it for me?
Wiederhoft.
Oh, and is that your last name?
Yes.
It is.
It's the only German thing about me.
Okay. Is your last name?
Yeah.
And the namesake of your brand.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, I'm so happy you're here to talk all things fashion.
Yeah. I love fashion. Garments.
I love your work. It is so beautiful, and ethereal is the wrong word, but it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. And we met, I was trying to think of how we met. It was 4 years?
Through Forged. Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And you invited me to a show. I don't think I'd ever been to a show before.
Okay.
But your shows are unlike any show I've ever been to. And I want to dive into that first because we'll definitely talk about the fashion. But your runway shows are not, people sit down, the models come in, walk in a circle and leave. Like you produce a dream or a nightmare or both sometimes. And I want to dive into that. Where does that come from?
Yeah. I think I've always been like a drama club kid. So it's just easier to, I don't know, think of it as a performance. I don't know. My mind just goes there. Sometimes it's easier to design when there's like a story and a narrative. And I think my brain kind of works more as a costume designer realistically than as a fashion designer. Okay. So it is really just it's not just about the garments. It's about like a story. It's about a narrative, an experience. So.
And how did you break from the mold? I feel like most fashion shows are pretty standard. 5 minutes, they come in, they sit, they literally walk in a U shape, and then it's over. But you haven't really done that even at the beginning. Yeah,
no, it's just never intentional. It was just what came natural. You know, our first show ever, 4 years ago was, a 15-minute performance on a little stage in Chelsea. And just ran on a loop 4 times, and it was 10 people. Some of them were dancers, some of them were actors, some of them were just models, and it was this whole choreographed little thing. And
I think I was there with the carpeted room with the sunken floor.
Oh no, that was the second show.
Okay, so I wasn't at the first show. Okay, I'll take it. I was at the second show. Amazing. So let's rewind backwards. How did you get into fashion? Did you go to school for this? Did you grow up sewing?
Yeah, I didn't get into fashion until really high school. Through costume design with the school shows. I saw a production of Hello Dolly in high school that changed my life. And I was like, okay.
Why did it change your life? I mean, it's a great show. Like a professional or like a school
It was
version?
at my high school.
Oh, okay. Got it. You weren't in it though?
No, I was in the audience. I was a sophomore in high school, and it was very actually the woman was one of the moms who designed the costumes. Her name was Mary Jackson, and she studied costume design and was a costume professional as well at one point. And she did a killer job with all the costumes, and I was just kind of blown away.
So not the music, not the acting.
I mean, obviously,
the
music was giving really great performers. But it was kind of that moment of realizing that maybe that the costumes could add to the story just as much as the performances was something that I kind of realized in that moment.
Interesting.
Just really brought the story to life for me in a way that was very visceral. And I was like, I have to be involved in this. Yeah, I have to get my hands on that.
And then what happened from there, your sophomore year in high school?
Yeah, I became queen of drama club.
Okay.
I was crazy.
You were determined. That was it.
I had an army of moms who would help me sew all the garments for the shows. I was crazy. But I loved it. They loved it. It was fun.
And was that more classic theater, or were you still adding Did you have a strong voice, I guess, or were you just making what
I think I was definitely learning my voice
is
then.
What a theater costume is a theater costume in some regards.
Yeah, I think definitely I learned really quick, and I didn't know how to sew or anything, but my Nana taught me how to sew, and I kind of had some basics, but I was just going for it with terrible skills, but it was effective on the stage.
Because you wanted to do it. Yeah. And then you just did it with all the moms.
Exactly.
I love that. So you graduate high school, and then what happens from there?
I moved to New York because I couldn't really decide if I wanted to do like costume design or fashion design at that point.
And where was high school?
In Houston.
In Houston. So you're from Texas.
It was like an all-boys Catholic school.
So you know Whataburger.
Very well.
I have a weird obsession with Whataburger.
I think everyone does. It's like, really smart.
I go to Texas and I'm like, I need a Diet Dr. Pepper and chicken tenders with gravy.
Exactly. Little patty melt.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Okay, so Texas, graduated high school and said, I need the big city.
Yeah, I just figured I was right. Turns out very insightful, I guess, for an 18-year-old. But I was like, it seems like in New York, you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I'll just figure it out later. And I'm still there. I don't think I have it figured out.
Yeah.
Because I love doing everything and not just being like one thing. So it's, when I moved to New York, I was really doing more of the costume design stuff. But then I kind of came to fashion design through costume design. But I was really studying fashion at Parsons, was like why I moved here.
For school.
Exactly.
So you went to fashion school with the intention to work in the industry, but kind of figuring out if it's costume or fashion or both.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And then from there, were there internships? Like, how did you sprout your wings?
Yeah, I started interning like the second I got here because I'm like Capricorn like that, I guess.
Overachiever.
Yeah. So I started doing all these internships and actually, I just like, I really wanted to apprentice at the Santa Fe Opera was like my dream after freshman year, but I didn't get the position. So I went back home and apprenticed at the Alley Theater in Houston.
I mean, opera makes sense for you because it's very grand.
That's on the bucket list.
Okay.
But I ended up meeting a designer in Houston who was associate designer for Tom Brown on an off-Broadway show that he was designing.
Okay. So
then,
he worked for Tom Brown and did Broadway. Yeah.
So Trisha worked, she was like a Broadway, like theatrical designer.
Okay.
But she was kind of assigned to Tom because he's a fashion designer. He doesn't know like costumes, but it was like a show.
Got it.
So then when I came back to New York, I was like, can I help you with this show? And so I worked with Trisha for like a year and then I met the team at Tom and I interned there for like 2 years in school. And then
While you were in school or after school?
Exactly, in school.
Wow.
And then I, petitioned really hard for a job with Tom. And then I worked for him for 3 years.
You made yourself valuable.
I just like clung.
You can't get rid of me.
I like sunk my nails in. I was really, and I love Tom and like the work there. So
yeah. And so you were there for 3 years. And what's the most valuable thing you learned there? I mean, was it different than school or intern? Like it's a iconic brand. Tom Brown is not,
Yeah, I was very lucky to get to work on like the runway shows and it was just like such a small team, especially at the time. And just to get to like work at that kind of level or very early in my career was like such a gift. And like, everyone was just so creative and like so invested in the vision. And
because you're like 24, 5 at that time?
I was 22 when I started working for Tom.
Gotcha. A baby. Yeah. Like literally people are still living at home when they're 22. Like they don't know what am I doing with my life?
Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. And then you finish that. You worked there for 3 years. And then when and how did you, like, had you always thought I want my own brand or I want my own line or?
Yeah. I mean, I knew I wanted to have like something of my own, whether it was like my own brand or designing for someone else. But I had been kind of sketching my first collection at my desk for years. And I was like, okay, I feel like I have to do this collection.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, I'll probably go work for someone else, but I should just like do this project for myself.
Yeah, because it was nagging at you.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna, be happy if I don't like do it. And then I did that first collection and it was kind of like, oh, well, maybe I could like make this work, And then COVID happened like a few months later. I was like, okay, I think I'm like, we're here.
The universe said,
Yeah, you're stuck with this now.
You're stuck with this. This is your baby. So you literally sketched your first collection while you were at work.
Yeah, just like
ideas
on
like
notes.
Throughout the day.
Things just like pop into your head and you like jot it down on a Post-it and then like keep it in your drawer. And
so not like an actual sketch, but like notes of looks or a mix. Like I've never done fashion is like very foreign to me.
Yeah, it was definitely like the longest collection I ever designed because it's just like in the back of your head for like years.
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
That's amazing.
It felt very like easy. Yeah.
And how many pieces were in the first collection?
I did 10 looks.
10 looks.
Yeah, and they were all kind of like fairy tale looks. So
yeah. And where does that fairy tale love come from? I feel like that is a world you enjoy playing in.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it is that kind of theatrical sense of just like, I don't know, storytelling. And I think for me, sometimes it's a story I create. Sometimes it's like a story I borrow from like mythology. Sometimes there's no story at all, more of like a feeling or an emotion. But yeah, with that one, I really wanted to like dig into like archetypal like characters and kind of like parody of them almost, So it's really fun to just like I love playing on like archetypes and like that kind of like contextual.
And contrasting them or playing with them?
Just like seeing how far you can twist it and like what you can do with it. Cause it is like, especially visually, there's so many archetypes, and especially within like fairy tales and kind of like these like mythologies, there's so much that's like understood with it to be like a common vocabulary. So it's kind of fun to like mess with it.
And take it and figure it out.
Yeah, just like twist it, see how far you can twist it till it breaks, till it becomes unrecognizable. Just see what happens. So,
and I love with your work, there's like a play of not just fabric, which is what you typically think of when you think of fashion, but of metal and stone and like the artisans that you work with in conjunction with your work. Do you like draw the silhouette and the fabric first, or do you find the artist you're going to collaborate with first, or what chicken or the egg in that kind of?
It kind of depends. It really depends like collection to collection. Sometimes it's very like drawing a full look and then it's just like figuring out how to execute it. And other times it's like the fabric comes first and you just kind of like let it figure itself out.
Yeah.
So I do like to kind of like let each collection like evolve into its own process a little bit. So it is nice to just like let things unfold, or like certain images come to you. Like I find it more fun to kind of like develop a collection over the course of multiple months rather than like, okay, and I'm going to sketch everything now. And then I'll spend a week sketching and then I'll choose all the fabrics and then I'll do this. I'll kind of like do it one look at a time sometimes, which is kind of more fun when you're like really inspired by like one idea to kind of like,
kind of build from that one piece.
Yeah.
And then how do you know when it's done? I mean, I feel like there's that saying like before you leave the house, take one thing off. Like fashion is so interesting to me that like, does it need more? Does it need less? Like obviously that's the art and that's the skill that you have, but like how does one develop that eye for the edit, I guess?
Yeah, well, at Wiederhoft, we're always like adding 1 or 2 or 3 things on.
Maximalism.
Rather than like
taking anything off.
It's just like a practice in styling and kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting to kind of, what it gets easier, I feel like, as the brand evolves, because it like, it's honestly really hard to start a brand because you don't have like, a core like DNA.
Yeah.
And over time, you really like, you develop a language, even within like, the hair, the makeup, like the nails, like what is that language? What does that texture of like Wiederhoft hair feel like? Like what is, I've worked with the same movement director, Austin Goodwin, for like years. And it's like, we've kind of developed like what the movement of Wiederhoft is. And like just the pace. And like, it's exciting to kind of like think about how that all feeds into the garments, you know? So it does just become like easier over time because you have like, you create a world and
that
it just
you're
like
living in.
Feeds itself.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. And the world evolves and changes as you evolve and change.
Yeah.
Your last show that I went to was incredible. I'd never seen like, most of the models were already, they like made their way to the middle before the show began. And there was like full choreo and movement. And what was even more striking was sort of diversity of the models that you work with. I find like in fashion, it's typically young, thin, tall models.
Yeah.
But you kind of had models of all ages and shapes and sizes. And that woman that was an older woman, like she's burned in my brain with her hair
Marta,
and like her movement and her body. Like what encouraged you to sort of break the mold of typical casting for fashion?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's one thing that's really great with working in bridal is you get to see so many body types in your clothes. And it's not just about like, the runway model. It's like, and I think it's interesting to just kind of like think about, different people I've seen in different silhouettes and what really works. And it kind of feeds into like, oh, she looked really good in that dress. I'd love to like show the rest of the world like kind of that idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, plant that seed.
So, or it just like feeds, like things that have happened kind of feed into it. And I think there's like, there's a lot of power in just like, just showing the world like what's possible, especially within the movement kind of feeds into that too. It's like, when you have a show, we had 33 dancers, I think, in our last show.
Wow.
And it's like, people just, they don't really understand like, a lot of our garments tend to be like, we do a lot of corsets and embroidery and things that are kind of like extreme or more theatrical or formal. And people are like nervous to wear it. But I think suddenly you see it in this context and you see like what's possible in the clothes. And it
feels
like,
real for you. Like you could wear that.
It activates the clothes in like a new way.
Yeah.
So.
It was really striking. Like she's like stuck in my brain. And then I also obviously, or maybe not obviously, love the gender bending in terms of like men in dresses is like a to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I've tried on one of your dresses. How did that come about? I mean, I feel like now it's more trendy. You're seeing like even straight actors wear very feminine or female clothes, or, you know, but is the brand DNA meant to be gender neutral, or how do you sort of see that?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of approach it from like a post-gender point of view where I think definitely Wiederhoft is like inspired by femininity. And I have like a huge interest in like the archetypal feminine, like ideal. And I think especially within like fairy tales or mythology, like there's so much
Princess
there with like ladylike sensibilities. But I think personally and professionally, I kind of prefer to let those mythologies of gender kind of inhabit the work, but it is kind of like not in opposition to, but just kind of like after, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, what is the fairy tale of a world where gender isn't like important anymore?
Yeah, where it's
but
not
we
a
can
construct.
still play with like the princess of it all.
Yeah.
So I think it's exciting to just kind of like, just play with those forms, especially within the work. Like I love corsetry and things that inherently feel feminine. But it's exciting to see just also like a casualness to it.
Yeah.
I think in a way that like people have said that it doesn't feel like forced. And I really appreciate that because it is just like how I want people to wear the clothes. It's not like a big deal. I don't like, you know, it's just, it's more free and it's not as like fixed, I guess.
Yeah, there's definitely no agenda. I just literally like took my breath away and I was like, I want to wear that. You know what I mean? And it wasn't this idea that like, I'm a gay man, so I should wear a dress. It was like, he looks incredible in this outfit. I want to wear that outfit. You know what I mean? Like it opened up a door even in my mind that sort of feels like, even in New York, even as like a very out proud gay man, that there are still these like constructs. But watching the show is like transformative in that way of just like seeing all the possibilities of like what fashion could mean for one person versus another person.
Yeah. There's infinite possibilities of like ourselves. And I think it's exciting to think of the clothes as almost a vehicle to explore a side of yourself that you never knew existed.
Yeah.
We were calling it like the secret door theory recently.
Okay.
Where it's like a secret door in a familiar space, like finding a secret door in your home that you never knew was there. And it opens up something inside yourself that you haven't really explored. And I think that's
been there, but
I think it's really exciting for me to see people, especially like in the corsetry, the more extreme silhouettes, like people look at themselves in the mirror and they've never seen this version of themselves. And it really is exciting for them. And you kind of like open up this possibility for them in that moment.
That they didn't have for themselves.
Yeah.
I love that.
So,
and you've dressed some pretty A-list people. How does that come about? I mean, it feels almost like a dream that you started your company, COVID hit, you've done these shows and you're dressing, I mean, Jennifer Coolidge, iconic, that queen. Dress, the queen of all queens. Like how does that come about? And does that add pressure for you, or is it sort of the same process to design a dress for an A-lister for the collection? Like how do you...
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I've been so blessed since like day one with like celebrity engagement that really just like, it is so valuable for people to like see it and they understand it, you know? I mean, Rihanna wore one of my pieces like 2 months out of school, which is like so cool.
2 months out of school. Did that, was that like through a friend or through a connect, or like how did Rihanna
It was
come
through
to your clothing?
A stylist, Ron Hartleben. We went to school together and he was working at CR Fashion Book with Corinne Roitfeld. And he kind of like pulled a look for my thesis and she ended up styling it on Rihanna. And it's like stuff like that, or like the first piece I ever sold was for Lady Gaga. And that's like crazy to me because like she was such a pivotal figure for me like growing up, you know?
I mean like iconic.
Yeah. So it's just like,
she was the first sale for your business.
Like literally sale.
And she paid for it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, someone paid for it. But a lot of times with celebrities, like it's a trade or, you know, like they don't pay for it.
Yeah, a whole thing. Yeah.
It's like a whole other curse of the fame. Even for weddings. Like we'll get inquiries for celebrity weddings. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But they don't want to pay.
Yeah, it's really
interesting. And they have
interesting.
more money than God, but they know that someone will do it for free, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's really interesting to see, especially around like small brands, people who are still just trying to like get away with things. And it's shameful.
It is, especially when they have the money, they have the coin. Okay, so Lady Gaga bought your piece, and then was that the piece that was in her music video, or that's a separate?
That was for the, it was a Dom Perignon campaign.
Okay.
That Nick Knight shot.
Okay.
So it was quite like dreamy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for her collaboration.
Yeah.
I have that bottle at home.
Okay.
I should open it, but I'm like weirdly not opening
it's like
it.
treasure.
I guess so. Lady Gaga and Dom, like it's like heaven for me.
Yeah. Everything you could want.
I literally. Okay. And then from there, when did bridal start for you?
Mm-hmm.
Did you always in the back of your mind want to do bridal?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it sort of, I feel like sometimes bridal is like, oh, then you don't do fashion. Like there's this weird energy in fashion that's like, oh, you do bridal, it's not fashion. Or like, oh, you're a designer, but you design weddings.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this weird second classness that comes with bridal or weddings. Is that something that you were cognizant of or that you thought about? Or you just were like, I want to make pretty dresses for brides?
It's definitely something I thought about. I think about all the time, talk about. Because I think when I had done my first like 2 collections, there was a lot of feedback where it's like, oh, this would be a great like bridal piece in white or whatever. And I had been kind of like planning on doing bridal. And then right when COVID hit was when I was working on my first bridal collection.
Mm-hmm.
So that became like my whole COVID project. And I ended up kind of like redesigning it completely from what I had planned to do, which was just kind of plugging in things I'd already done and doing them in white.
Mm-hmm.
And instead it became like very, very, very like designed in itself. But yeah, there's like such a passé attitude, especially within like fashion around bridal, which is a shame because there's like so much opportunity. And I think especially in American bridal industry, it's very traditional. And the brides are like starving for something else, a little more interesting.
100%. The wedding dress hasn't changed since like, the first wedding ever, which I don't know when that is, but like every movie, every book, like it's all the same white silhouette.
Yeah. And I think, it's a shame that there's this weird attitude around bridal sometimes because it is like, inherently one of the most important days of many people's lives. It's one of the for many people, it's, the time they'll spend the most on a garment in their life. Yeah. And, it's a day you'll definitely remember for the rest of your life. Yeah. So I think there's like so much value to it, like emotionally. And I kind of like fell in love with it unexpectedly. And I think I didn't expect such a strong reaction from my first bridal collection. Mm-hmm. Like I was really surprised that people were into it. And I was also really into it. So it kind of worked out.
Yeah. And then I'll never forget at the most recent show, Julia Fox was wearing, that was a bridal look, right?
Full look bridal
the veil with the poodle veil. The poodle veil that like, it's iconic. Like how does that even come to your mind that like you reinvented a veil? Like there's a million veils on the market, but only one Wiederhoft poodle veil.
There's only one poodle veil. It's
only
true.
One.
And Julia Fox is the poodle.
100%. She's also worn your poodle
She's worn a poodle dress,
which is that dress. Like those are 2 of my favorite pieces of all times.
Yeah. I think it's exciting because things like that, where it's like some of our most exciting moments in the press or VIP have been these bridal pieces. And it just goes to show that, bridal can have just as much integrity as any other runway piece. Yeah. So,
I mean, it's phenomenal. Like she was just twirling and I was like mesmerized and I was like, I want to wear this poodle veil.
I know. I'm glad she wore that because I was like pushing for that. And it's just iconic. And like, I don't know, it's fun to kind of what I was talking about earlier about like archetypal imagery. Like bridal is so archetypal. Yes. And like you were saying, like there is just these silhouettes and it's so fun to kind of like think about those traditions and just like, just bend it, see what happens.
And is she your muse or how did she's been to the last couple of shows, but like how does that work in terms of like when people come wearing your clothes? Are they asked? Are they invited? Do they ask you? Like what are the politics? Yeah,
we work a lot with her stylist, Rihanna, who's iconic as well. And
which makes sense that she would have an iconic stylist.
Yeah, no, it's great. She was wearing a bridal look to the show as well.
Okay.
One of our like trompe l'oeil like mini dresses with like the corset embroidered on it. But yeah, it's just that kind of group of like these. What's great about Julia Fox is she is a real person, but also like not at the same time. Yeah. Which I really like relate to. That kind of identity of like theatrics, but also like real life. I mean, like she's such a New Yorker and like
picture of her apartment went viral. Like everyone assumed she had this like celebrity apartment, but she just had like a hoardery, messy apartment like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
And the world, I think, like fell in love with her even more. And now her book is like a New York Times bestseller, like about her life, which is amazing.
Yeah, there's a genuine emotion happening there that I think people really respond to. that I think with a lot of celebrity kind of things, you get like quite removed from reality.
The humanness.
But Julia's like with us. She walks
there.
among us.
Yeah. Her and Jennifer Coolidge. I mean, who else do you want at your dinner party?
Us, yeah.
Yes, literally. And so for bridal, is it a collection? Is it custom? Like if someone wants to get a dress with you or dresses, what does that process look like? Is it off the rack? Is it sketch and custom?
Dresses, plural.
Plural, yeah. You're
full look bridal
from
looks.
The beginning. I know you're like, why have one dress when you can have 3 or 4?
You could have a full runway show at your wedding.
Why not?
It's really like a genius thing to do.
I agree.
Yeah, we have all the above. Almost everything's made to order, and we have our showroom on 38th Street. And yeah, people come, they play dress up, and some people do like custom, or we have so much. That's the great thing about bridal is like, it doesn't matter what season it's from. It's like so emotional.
You love it or you don't.
You can just like go through the archives and really find something that speaks to you.
And then you make it just for that bride. Yeah. Like you don't have a collection that you're buying. And then, because that even is like typical bridal fashion is here's our collection. You're buying this collection next year. And then we have a new collection, and archival pieces are not.
Yeah, it's fun to like look back. And there's pieces that are, 3 or 4 years old where no one's ever purchased it, but then someone comes in and they find this piece and they're the first one to buy it even like 3 or 4 years later. And it's like so cool because it's like those dresses, my dresses tend to be pretty specific, but what's great about it is like eventually they find a home and like someone who's like perfect for it. Yeah. And it's kind of like nice to know that.
It's like kismet that they met. It just might have taken a little bit of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. So when you're not making dresses and designing collections, how do you spend your free time? Do you have free time? You're a New Yorker.
I don't really know if I have free time.
Okay.
I like to go for long walks at night. That's kind of like my wind down, but I don't really like take time off or anything at the moment, working on it.
Working and walking.
Yeah. Well, I also like have a lot of ideas while I walk at night. Or
interesting.
Like also like our fall 22 or fall 23 collection from February. Like I designed so much of that, like walking at night through like New York.
Being inspired, I think was very by like building or people or just like
vibes and like walking in the winter and darkness and just like chain link fences and like drama. But yeah, I just honestly like my love language is like collaboration at this point, and like all my best friends inherently become like my collaborators. Yeah. So it's hard to not work. Yeah.
I get it. And you love it. So it isn't work because it's what you love to do. Is there anyone you are very excited to dress or like on the wish list to dress for you that you want to put in the universe?
That's the thing is I feel like everyone kind of like, you can't force Wiederhoft on someone because it is like quite specific.
It is, yes.
And it's kind of like you're just like waiting for like the deer to like come to water and they come when they're ready and you can't like force it.
I get it.
Sometimes it takes like a few years to like sink in. But there's so many people I love to dress. And like sometimes our brides become like, just as like favored as like some of our like VIP moments. Where it's like they get like, we just like certain brides like stick in your brain forever and ever. Like ghosts.
Because you make something for them that, you
get to know someone really well.
Yes.
As you know.
Yes, I know very well.
Inside and out.
Yes. So. And I want to talk about the CFDA, is it awards or CFDA
The Fashion
Council?
Fund. But I'm also on the council now.
Oh, you're on the council now. But originally you were part of the CFDA.
The CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund.
Yes.
Which kind of like.
And CFDA stands for?
The Council of Fashion Designers of America.
Thank you.
USA.
And you tell me more about that. I feel like that.
Yeah.
I know very little about that world, but it sounds important.
Yeah, it's like, well, I was in the Fashion Fund. It's basically CFDA and Vogue and the selection committee. They basically choose like 10 designers a year kind of to be part of this like program that really is kind of signaling like these are who we believe in as like the next wave. So
do you apply for that or they find you?
You apply for it.
You apply for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they narrow it down and then there's lots of like steps, but it's a really like such an honor to be a part of like that group because it is like, the selection committee is like amazing. It's like Stephen Kolb and Anna Wintour and like my old boss, Tom Brown, and just like, Rupal Patel from Saks, like all these people who like, are just like incredible leaders of the industry. And then you kind of get this mentorship. bestowed upon you, and they really kind of like help you figure out like what you're doing. So our first runway show was because of that, and it was very much like, you got to do this. So
you did it.
I did it. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess whatever Anna says goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you talk to her? Obviously.
Yeah.
There's such a funny thing about her. Like she's such this like omnipotent present that like the hair, the glasses, like the vibe.
Yes.
But like there has to be a legend, but there has to be like a lovely human under there.
No, she's great. She's really like kind of just like galaxy brain, I would say. Like she sees everything. She connects dots. Like she is so supportive of like small brands. And I have this little like curse where like every time at an event with her, my shoe breaks.
Every time.
Yeah. Well, 3 times in a row.
I mean, that's
not the most recent time. Okay. But luckily.
Oh my gosh. Do you want to name the shoe brand? No, I'm just kidding.
Marc
Is it
Jacobs.
The same shoe or different shoes?
2 shoes once and then a separate shoe. It was really odd.
That is very
really
strange. Like something's. Yeah. Like, did she see you? Did you
know
trip?
Anna's coming because the heels just
coming
start
off?
Clacking and cracking.
Got it. Got it. Were you like limping, or you just like tried to play it cool, or just took off your shoes?
No, you just like it's kind of like that the Barbie walk.
Got it. You just pretend that the heels are there
because you still have one. So.
Oh my gosh, the things you have to do.
Yeah, life is theater.
Life is theater. Yeah. And you're also working on a movie.
Yes, short film.
I mean, that's wild.
Yeah.
But in the world of costumes.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we always keep it interesting. I'm actually also doing like I just finished designing this like elf holiday village that opens.
Elf holiday village?
Yeah, it's like a Christmas village full of like elves. It
that
opens
people
on
can
Friday.
Like, people can go and visit in New York City, or where is it?
It's in it's at Nemacolin, this resort near Pittsburgh. And it was really fun, this whole like immersive like Christmas experience.
Wild.
So
and there's just like decked out elves in
Wiederhoft elves. Yeah, they're like candy cane, not candy cane. It's more like Candyland actually.
Okay.
Should get it straight. Yeah.
That's like pretty wild. And that wedding you did there was out of control.
Yes.
For 2 grooms.
Exactly.
How many outfits did they have?
32.
Between the two of them.
Between the two of them, it was like 10. But we did 32 for like the whole wedding. It was gorgeous.
I love that. I think sometimes people feel like fashion is in a wedding. If there's a bride, it's for the bride.
Yeah, no.
But in this case, or in any case, like everyone should feel fabulous and decked out for their wedding day.
The guys want to feel cute too. Like,
of course.
We had a couple come in recently for a fitting. They want to do like matching like reception looks, which is so cute. I think there's like a lot of opportunity.
100%.
I want to know where the gay guys are. I don't get enough, like, where are you?
Where are they?
They want to wear like Tom Brown, I think. They just want to look like.
Interesting. They want to like, there's like
they
in
want,
their mind.
They want their butts to look like cute. I get it. But like, we need more.
Because you kind of, you cover all that area.
Yeah.
Like if you're in one of your corsets or a dress, like you're not showing, you don't have tight pants.
I mean, we have tight pants. We have very tight garments, but I think I'm looking forward to the wave of like.
Got it.
Grooms.
Of when the booty is not the focal point.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Get that waist.
Get that waist.
Yeah.
Planning a wedding can be stressful, but Generation Tux understands. They've designed a suit and tuxedo rental process that you can complete entirely from home. It's easy, convenient, and stress-free. Forget about store visits, last-minute pickups, and ill-fitting suits. With Generation Tux, you'll choose from over 25 premium wool suits and tuxedos, customizable with hundreds of accessories and colors. Plus, you'll get free shipping and delivery 14 days before your wedding. Free replacements, prepaid returns, and amazing customer service. Visit generationtux.com for the perfect suit or tuxedo delivered straight to your door. Well, we have some questions that I'd love to ask you.
Great.
Hi, Jove. My question is, where does their inspiration come from each season? So is a muse, an image, textures, and then once you've settled on that, where does that lead them, and how do they create a cohesive collection around that theme that they have chosen or inspiration? So excited to hear this podcast. Thanks.
That's quite a question.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I kind of lean into it each time. Like our last collection was called Night Terror at the Opera, and it was like Act 1, Night Terror, Act 2, Dream, Act 3, Nightmare.
Okay.
And I just kind of leaned into that, like during the design process.
Like the words came first.
Yeah. And it was just like, I think it's like even in that, I was like, am I going to design a dreamlike collection or one that's inspired by dreams? And ultimately I decided it need to be dreamlike, you know, rather than like
inspired by.
Yeah. And so I was just kind of like one night I found myself just like kind of almost, I couldn't sleep, which is very rare for me. I can sleep anywhere, but I just like woke up at 3 a.m. and just kind of like wandered the streets and like was talking to strangers. And it was just like kind of things like that where you're just like kind of letting yourself go into this like dreamland a little bit, you know? Whereas with this collection, it's very, the one I'm working on now is very much about like secrets.
Secrets?
Yeah.
Ooh, I like
it's
that.
It's called Secret Room.
Secret Room, like as you were saying earlier.
Preface, yeah.
Okay.
But it is, there's something, I feel like the Wiederhoft like kind of figure is often one who's like lost or wandering or like kind of like looking for something, you know, outside of themselves or inside of themselves. So I'm kind of like always thinking of how that pertains, but yeah.
And do you have anyone you bounce your ideas off of, or it's like this is the idea and you go for it and sort of figure it out? Like sometimes I work for myself, like I have a lot of time alone. Like, is that the same case for you, or do you have people that you're like, do we love it? Do we hate it? Or you know?
I think I just talk about it like casually with everyone.
Okay.
I just try to like slip it into conversations.
Like at the coffee shop.
Yeah, literally. No, it's interesting what people will like. Yeah, just because honestly, it's like if I'm working on something that's like all I would think about, especially when I'm like inspired. So it's hard not to like
to like do. And then you have 2 collections a year. Is that standard? Or
this
like,
year we did like 2 runway shows and like a bridal capsule.
Okay, so 2.5 or 3.
2.5, yeah.
And then how much time do you have between each one?
There's like 5 months between September to February, and then like 7 between February to September. So
wow. And you design a whole collection, produce, and do the show, and then you start all over.
Exactly.
Wow.
Never
I mean,
that's a
lot. Literally, like that's a lot to have that much inspiration. All right, we have another question.
Yeah, luckily I'm like never bored or like not inspired.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, you can't not
hard.
be, I feel like, because you have another show looming.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another question.
This question is for Jackson. Jackson, we love your bridal collections. I'm curious, in what ways will you continue to challenge or break away from traditional wedding fashion stereotypes in your designs?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just fun to think about like addressing tradition, but kind of like touching on it. You know what I mean? And I think some of my favorite silhouettes have been ones that I think it's really exciting to address the silhouette or the fabric, but just to treat it in such a way that's really against itself, you know? Or like we had a dress that everyone calls it the Rita Ora dress because she wore it to the Vanity Fair Oscars party.
Hair flip.
And it's kind of like, you know, it's a white corseted dress with like a tulle skirt, but it's done in such a way that is like really interesting, I think. And like you see like the pieces of tulle are all like, there's like 32 pieces of tulle all attached with like hardware to like the corset. And the corset is like just a very extreme kind of like cinch. And, you know, it does kind of like play into those, you know, white, long,
fantasy,
floor length tulle dress with a corset.
Ball gown,
You know, if you describe it as that, it's like, oh, it's a wedding dress. But then when you see it, it's kind of like.
It's not that.
Yeah. So it is like really fun to kind of like diverge from the path or turn it upside down or kind of the dream version of something that's familiar, which I think was what's so fun about bridal is that it's like, it does have to like touch on something. Otherwise it just becomes like a dress. Yeah. Which is great. I love, you know, you don't have to wear like, you can wear anything for a wedding. It's great. But I think there's something really fun and kind of challenging about and kind of parodical to like think about how can you stay within that frame of reference and kind of like play with it, you know?
Yeah, I love that. We have a few more questions from Instagram before we go. Danielle Mareka said, now that you run a business, how has that impacted your design journey? Struggles, like you're doing it all basically. So like, is that what she wants to know your struggles as a business owner and designer? Because when you worked for Thom Browne, you're in a building that someone is managing, paying the rent, doing the payroll, like ordering the supply.
Someone orders snacks.
Everything is taken care of. You as a business owner.
Money in the bank every 2 weeks.
Correct.
Yeah.
You take care of everything and design everything. So she wants to know your struggles.
Yeah. I mean, I think running a business, it's like you do everything. I thought, Tom Brown, when I was working there, was like a pretty small operation compared to what it is now, but it was still like I got to like design most of the time. Whereas now it's like designing is kind of like if I'm lucky, like on the weekend,
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, there's like a chaos to the multitasking of it all.
Okay. That you enjoy.
That I really enjoy. Yeah.
Okay.
Just juggling everything. And I think I have to, if you don't find joy in like that chaos, it's probably not going to be like
last
for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think I'm always learning and kind of like pushing myself, and God knows I tried. I didn't go to business school. I don't have an accounting degree or anything.
Yeah.
But
you figure it out. You set
count
it up on autopay.
I can count to 10 and working on 11 really hard.
You'll get there.
We'll see.
One step away.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm counting backwards.
I mean, I feel like that's the brain of a creative though. And it's like, you can't really distill it into like a sentence of like, this is how I design. Like it's so different for every person that I speak with.
Yeah. People are like, how have you been? Like, how was your week? And I'm like, I'm literally like, I can't even tell you like what happened, because it's just like
everything and nothing.
I love this kind of like, I don't know, you're just kind of existing. And I'm always doing kind of like many projects at once.
Yep.
But it kind of just becomes this like game almost of like juggling a million things, and how can you like
fit it all.
It's really like
and
satisfying.
Do it all.
Yeah.
Listen, that's exciting, because you could have been like, everything's a struggle and I quit. So I'm glad, and I'm sure they're glad that that's not the response.
Sometimes people are like, I'd love to see the inside of your brain. And I was like, I felt like very much the finale sequence of our last show was like the inside of my brain,
that's
where there's
what
just like 3 performances happening at once.
At the same time.
Like
I didn't like that. I was like, I want to watch you and I want to watch you, and I know something else is going on over here. I want to watch all of it, which is...
Yeah, I wanted to create something purposefully like confusing and like there's satisfaction in like having to like hone in or not,
to make a choice,
to know you're missing something.
And I did not like the FOMO of missing something, but then I watched it on Instagram, so it was all good.
Yeah.
All right, our last question. Would you ever design again for theater? Is there a show you dream of designing? That's from the little Stowe. Oh no, the littlest owl. 21.
Tiny owl.
Tiny owl wants to know.
Yeah, I love theater. I mean, I would love to like... Sweeney Todd's my favorite musical. I'd love to design.
Have you seen the most recent?
No, I haven't.
You have to go.
I'm missing out.
It's very good. You have to go with this cast. The new cast that's coming.
When is it coming?
I don't think it's going to be the same. It's Annalay Ashford and Josh Groban. Like, it's iconic.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think I would love to just design film, design opera, design ballet. A Broadway show is definitely like on the list for me, I hope, one day. One of my big life goals, I really want to direct and design a production of The Red Shoes, which is my favorite film.
I don't know The Red Shoes.
It's my favorite in the world.
Okay.
I'd love to do that as a film, but I think it's been done in theater as well. But I think, there's just so much that I want to do, and it's like never ending. And definitely like, I love working with performers. It's like so magical. And like even doing this elf village now, like some of the elves are like people I've worked with on my shows, like same performers. And it's just nothing like being backstage and everyone's like getting ready and it's like, thank you, Five. And everyone's
the
like,
moment right before
like,
it all happens.
Yeah. Everyone's like, my button fell off. And it's like, it's cute. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Wiederhoft, or you can go to our website, wiederhoft.com. We have all the show videos. They're really fun to watch.
Like very fun to watch. I mean, it's like you have to watch them.
Yeah, very important footage.
And if you want an outfit, make an appointment, or can they just show up anytime?
Yeah, make an appointment online. We have a whole gorgeous bridal studio on 38th Street.
It's so pretty. That floor.
Yeah, we call it Shrek's Swamp because it's like a green marbled floor. It's like, get out me swamp.
It's very pretty. Like that studio, chef's kiss.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. All right. Be well.
You too.
Weddings-ish. So excited. Now it's time for Ask Jove, where I answer your questions all about love, life, celebrations, fiancés, parties, travel, really anything you want to know. We've got you covered. I'm joined in studio by my dear friend Sloan, and we are so excited to Ask Jove.
Today's question.
Yes, bring it on.
The guest list puzzle.
Guest list puzzle.
Yes.
Ooh.
Plus ones or no plus ones?
That is the greatest debate of all times.
Well, Laura from Michigan wants to say, we're in the midst of planning our guest list, and it's turning into a bit of a puzzle. We have budget constraints.
Puzzle's a nice word. I feel like there's another word she's not
She's
using.
being so generous.
She's being very kind.
We have budget constraints, and our venue isn't very spacious.
Yeah.
Here's the issue. We really don't want strangers at our wedding.
Ooh.
And we're torn about whether to allow single guests to bring a date.
Yeah.
Any advice to help us make this choice without too much stress?
I mean, it sounds to me like if you already have if you already booked the venue, then your guest count is already determined for you. Like the venue is going to tell you we hold 150. So you have to look through your list. And if you're already at your number without plus ones or strangers, as she calls them, which to no discredit to her, this is so weird. I'm literally having all of these conversations now that I'm a fiancé. And we feel a little bit differently, Kyle and I. He wants to invite everyone he's ever met and all of the people they're in love with.
The biggest table in the entire world.
Literally the biggest wedding ever. And I'm like, okay, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. But I think if it's a local wedding, I think you don't have to be super flexible on plus ones. If this person knows other people in the room, they are single or unmarried, I think they don't need a plus one. I think if you are a destination wedding and this person is solo, I can also see why they wouldn't want to travel alone or to go somewhere with a smaller group of people that maybe they don't know so well. I can understand the impetus to offer a plus one in that situation. I really think it's circumstantial because I don't think marriage or being engaged is the end goal of society or the bar that we should set for a plus one. Just doesn't feel fair. If someone has been with their partner or partners for a long time and they're in your life, they should be included.
Yes.
If someone recently started dating someone from Tinder like last week, I'm not really sure about that.
Hi, I found this person last night. Can they come?
Like literally they're a stranger. And so I understand that you don't want that energy at your wedding. I think it's a case-by-case scenario. I think you make a list of all the people that are single and that are partnered, and all of the people that are partnered, whether they're married, dating, engaged, if you know them and you love these people, it's a no-brainer. All the single people, case-by-case basis.
Agree.
Sit down with your partner, pour a glass of something, and literally case-by-case basis. You don't have to set a blanket rule. I think that's the real answer. There's not a one shoe that fits all here. You have to decide what's best for that person, but also for you. If I want you to come, but you're not coming without someone else because maybe you're insecure or you're nervous or you're anxious, then I'm going to make an exception for you. But if you're just being a diva and you want someone to have someone, and I know that about you, I'm not going to give you someone.
That's such good advice.
Do you know what I mean?
Case by case basis.
Case
Absolutely.
by case basis.
Absolutely.
I love a list. Make a list, check it twice, make your decisions, and hold firm. Especially if the space is the space.
Yeah.
Because you can't build a bigger space.
There you go, Laura. Good luck.
Well, that's it for today, and wasn't that fun? Don't forget to send your questions. Again, any questions, send them our way to hi@jovemeyer.com, and maybe I will answer them on air. If you can, send a voice memo. I love to hear your voice.
Weddings-ish.
Thank you again for listening or watching Weddings-ish with Jove. This episode is brought to you by Generation Tux, the perfect suit or tuxedo delivered straight to your door. GenerationTux.com. If you liked today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're also super grateful to Mel Flannery for the music on the podcast. She created, produced, and designed all of the music. And don't forget, you can watch Weddings-ish with Jove on Love Stories TV, YouTube, or streaming TV channel. Visit lovestoriestv.com/live for the list of streaming apps.
Weddings-ish.